We are recording the interview of Robert Robertson. This interview is being conducted by David Morse from the Wright State University Veteran Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at the Crowne Plaza in Dayton, Ohio. It is 3:07 p.m. on July 12th, 2019. You go by Bob, right?
Go ahead, sure.
All right, Bob. Let's start off with where and when you were born.
I was born in Dorchester, which is a part of Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay. And who were your parents?
Irving and Bessie Robinson. What else do you want me to say?
What were their occupations?
Oh. Well, my mother was a homemaker.
Okay.
Before she married, she was she worked for Western Union. My father and his partner had a small meat market in South Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And they did for many years.
Really?
And I have one brother who's dead now, who was a genius, really. He graduated MIT with honors. He got, he was one of the country's leading experts, if not the leading expert on friction and lubrication, graduate of MIT with honors. Died at 51 because he smoked too much. He himself was a service in 25th Infantry. He enlisted the day after I did because he was only a year younger than I. We fought like hell when we were growing up, but we never got into a fair fight with anybody else. It was always the two of us against whoever that was. But he stabbed me with a fork. He stabbed me with a can opener. We had some great fights, but we loved each other.
Sure.
I think of him quite honor. He's a hero during the war. As he was brighter than I, won all kinds of prizes at the Boston Latin School, where we both graduated. He won all kinds of prizes in the science subjects. They were my worst. He did all right. You want me to ramble on? I will.
No. It's whatever. That's awesome. You and your stories of you and your brother remind me of me and my brother.
Yeah, he was. I will tell you about him. When he died, he was 51 years old. His family got a letter from President Ford. The president said he'd been informed that George Robinson had died and that he had done important work for our national security. The president said he wouldn't pretend to understand the technicalities, but he was told that the country has lost a very important man.
Wow.
And that this letter was written to show that the family's loss is shared at the highest level of government.
Wow. That's a great
That's
honor.
what I have about my brother.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so prior to you joining the service, what were you doing?
I was a student at Boston University, enrolled in a program whereby I could get an undergraduate degree and a law degree in 6 years rather than 7. And I had done 2 years of the undergraduate work prior to my enlistment. I enlisted only because I think Boston University did the right thing. I enrolled again in September of 1942. But BU said that they would be, if you were going to enlist, and guys were enlisting all over Boston. Recruiting stations were opposite Boston University. Come on in, take a test. If you pass, you get 30 days to enlist or not, as you see fit. And BU would give back the tuition, which was only $500, I think. It's ridiculous. It's by today's standards, man. And in October, though, they announced that they couldn't keep returning the money. And if you were going to enlist, just do it before the end of October, or we cannot give your money back. They couldn't pay their teachers. They didn't. I enlisted on October 28th. I came home and told my parents that. Like sitting at the kitchen table, my brother was just quiet as a mouse. When I get through, he announced, I'm enlisting tomorrow. We argued with him. No argument. It wasn't at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
The agreement was, if they said we could stay together, because that was his only reason for doing it, to be with me. He said he'd enlist, but if they would not agree, then he would stay where he was. Incidentally, you should know this. What time wasn't like this? He was at Northeastern University at the time, because he'd been rejected at MIT, even though he had all kinds of prizes at the Latin School. But my father went up there to MIT and said, I know you have taken boys who do not have the credentials that George has. And they said, you're right, Mr. Robinson, but we can't place Jewish boys. And we have to place our graduates in the leading companies of this country, and they won't take them. So he enrolled in Northeastern. The Army took him, and believe it or not, in the first 3 months, we both were trained as basic radio maintenance, fax, whatnot, hand tools and all that stuff. And I took to it. There were several hundred, I don't know how many, started in January 1st of 1943 in enlisted reserve, civilian clothes. My mother's still making sandwiches for us. We are in the Army, okay? We're going to classes. I had never done any manual artwork at all, no carpentry or anything. But I took to it, building radios, building transmitters, learning all the color codes, learning all the different values, learning how to do things with hand tools, with hand equipment. Make a long story short, I'm in the top 50. And they take the top 50 of this class. My brother's in the next 75. So we split right away. He was sent to Philco, and I was sent to the University of Maine. It's 2 miles in a little town called Orono. And there they told us they're looking for radar men, and we're going to get 2 years of a basic electrical engineering, and we're going to do it in 4 months. You tell any electrical engineer that, he'll say, can't be done. Right. I'll tell him. We lived in rooming houses. There was no fooling around. I've never got paid so much in my life. $39 a week I was getting paid. In the Army, getting paid. But give you an idea how it was. They told us that there were girls up at the University of Maine. Remember, we were 19 years old. We're human beings. And they said, now you listen to us. These girls have a habit here at the university. They say hi to strangers as they pass them by. You will say hi to them, and that's the end of the conversation. I wanted to kill that son of a gun. I mean, well, you don't talk to guys like that. But he did. But there was no time for that anyway. We got to our seats in that classroom, and that was your seat for as long as you say. There was no moving from class to class. The professors came to us, all 50 of us. 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 to 12. Breakfast was at 7 if you wanted breakfast. Sometimes you didn't have breakfast. 8 to 12, and then 12 to 1 lunch. Back in that same seat from 1 to 5. Homework at night, and you better do it because the next day, if you didn't, you wouldn't know what the hell was going on. There was no stall, no waste. No easy cases. 8 hours a day. 43 of us passed. It was hell. So now I'm 20 years old. God almighty. time for basic training. We go to Air Force, Miami Beach was an Air Force basic training center. Oh. We get through basic training, we're told, no, we think we're going to be officers. Look what we did. No, you're not going to be officers. So we didn't know. We didn't know. We never promised you commission. You said we could go as high as possible. That we said, and you did. And you don't know it, but you did. We had, when we found out we were not going to Army to officer candidate school, I and several, I don't know if they all did, but I know several did, joined ASTP, Army Specialized Training Program. The requirements were simple. You had to come into the service from a college. You had to be under 22, and you had to have the requisite IQ, which wasn't all that high. And if you had those three things, the law required them to let you to go to ASTP. And if you take whatever courses they would give you, and if you passed, you would get your commission, which is what we understood we were going to get. Well, they sent down 3 officers into Florida, to one of the hotel rooms, and they're fatherly types. But they were high officers. I don't know what their ranks were, but they were high-ranking officers. And they were smart enough. If they took all 40 of us, or as many of us as did apply to ASTP, and put us in a room, they'd be dead. If one of us spoke, all of us would unite, and we'd chase them, I don't care how high they were, out of Florida. No, one at a time. I never forget. I remember waiting my turn. I'm following a man named a friend of mine, one of the 43, Louis Nardoni. He was brilliant for crying out loud. We didn't have calculators then. We had slide rules. German slide rules, incidentally. A Teufel and Essa, and the little plastic pocket slide rule. And Louis wrote the manual for the slide rules. That'd give you the quality of the guy. And he walked out of that room, and his face was bitter. And he passed me. I waved, Robbie. You did what? I waved, and I can't help you. It's a personal matter, and he's mad as all hell, and he stalks off. I says, what the hell is this? And I go in there. They had all the answers. Louis wasn't the first one they had done. They knew, you want to be an officer? Yes. We heard it all. It's a nicer uniform. It's, people salute you. It's good for girls, right? What's wrong with that, sir? Nothing's wrong with that. But you're going to radar school. This stuff, this equipment is being built at MIT and at a school in California. and there are no technicians. You are a resource now. And we must put our resources to their best use. We need second lieutenants, yes, but we need radar technicians. And we are told that there's equipment that is coming back from the field to go to factory if they can't change a tube. We didn't have transistors, you know. It was just tubes. We didn't even have solid state. It was hardwired. I don't think there was a circuit board. And they said, we are told you get through school, you get passed, you can fix the damn stuff in a half a day, and that's what you're gonna do. You promised us. And I hated this guy because he said, you did better than a commission. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And I said, what do you mean it's better? What could be better? And he said, honest to God, he said this. You're coming home, Robinson. When the war is over, you are most likely coming home. I couldn't understand him at first. And then it hit me. I said, sir, do you think we work like slaves up there, all-nighters, to get ready for the next day? You think it's easy? Do you think that when we enlisted, we weren't willing to take the same risk that any other soldier did? They said, listen to yourself. You're not any other person anymore. Now, this is a no-brainer for you, Robinson. You are not any other person. This is nothing personal. There's no insultment, nothing. We're giving you the facts. It's not Hollywood. It's not the knight's uniform. It's not girls. It's not anything. It's, you can do something that we need. What's so tough to understand? I tell you, I didn't. You know when I learned how stupid I was? Years later, when the war is over, and I'm at one of my reunions with the 307th Bomb Group, we had a historian, and he announced at one of the meetings that he received a letter from the general whose forces had captured Clark Field. And there they had found any number of kamikaze aircraft parked, stationary, not each one in good condition, nothing, just parked there, useless. Reason? No gasoline. I had been trained. They sent me to radar school. I learned search radar first. And in 43, I worked out of 3 10-ton trucks right along the Atlantic coast. And I was a trick chief on a sample thing. Each of these units had three technicians like me, each one 8 hours. And we can call on each other if we ever needed help. the tail end of 43, I get switched from the east coast of Florida to the west coast of Florida for airborne training. Airborne low altitude radar bombing and high altitude radar bombing. And I qualified on both. And I'd been sent to the 307th Bomb Group on Morotai for low altitude radar bombing, 400 feet to 2,000 feet. That's what the equipment was for. 400 feet. If you've been to a ball game, my God, that's from home plate to center field. We're after ships, constant ships, because that's when the kamikaze started. They had lost that war in 44. They knew it. And the only chance they had to force a negotiated peace was with these kamikaze. If they had started it 6 months earlier, they probably would. There was no Air Force at this time. It was all part of the United States Army. And MacArthur had turned over the 307th, this Army Air Corps outfit, to Admiral Nimitz. It was his sole sailors that were being killed by these kamikazes. So that'll explain what happened when they read this letter. Because you now know how my feeling toward this guy. You could never get that out of your head that he said you were coming home. Did I wave because I was coming home or because he was making such sense? He was making sense. But put that thought in your head that maybe these guys that are going off and flying off, you know, well, be that as it may, the letter told us about the parked cars, parked planes. No gas, and the second paragraph, electrifying. Me and others like me. Thank you, 13th Air Force. That was the entire second paragraph. And he signed the damn thing. He didn't have to write that letter. The war was over. He wrote that years ago. He just, that's when I grew up overnight, like that. I said, gee, God almighty. It was right. They were right. And the rest is just, as far as I'm concerned, unimportant stuff. I came back. I owe a lot to the Army. Why? I did 3.5 years in the service. I got 4 years of GI Bill. Got through, finished my undergraduate. Law degree. I did well at law school. I got practiced law for 35 years. Mostly Chapter 11 bankruptcy lawyer. Financially sick businesses. Try to save a payroll if you can.
That's good.
Got all the credentials there, including a heart attack at age 46 because I was stupid. Smoked almost 4 packs a day. Yeah, Chapter 11 is, everybody wants the last every last bit that's in their particular contract. 100 cents on the dollar, that's what you want. You did the work, you did the construction, whatever it was. You're entitled to it. But it isn't there. The money isn't there. Did that for 35 years. One of the best things then, when I had a heart attack, it's at 46. I had a good doctor. Paul Dudley White was my doctor. That was an interesting thing because he had just been the doctor for President Eisenhower. He was in his 80s. But I had had a heart attack in Arizona when I had taken my wife, my 2 kids, and we were at Flagstaff, Arizona. When I asked the doctor there, I said, when I get back to my firm, I was the last partner the firm made at that time. I was the youngest partner and the first one to have a heart attack. Go crazy. He said he didn't know anybody except this Paul Dudley White, this guy. He said, but he's in his 80s, but he will name somebody for you. I said, okay. When I got back to the States, I didn't want my partners. I had 8 partners. They all come with the suggestion. No. When I called White, this has got nothing to do with me, but it interests you. Paul White, when he found out that my doctor was Dr. George Spencer in Arizona, he said to me, would you mind if I were your doctor? Would I mind if he was my doctor? This guy who'd been the president's doctor? I said, no. He says, I got to tell you a story. When White went over to Africa, he went to see some famous doctor whose name I forget. It'll come back to me when I'm left. He was a minister, he was a doctor, and he was an organ player. And Dr. White hated him because in his city, in his area, wherever it was, he saw diseases which had been wiped out almost everywhere. And this doctor, Schweitzer, Jesus, God Almighty, Dr. Schweitzer, he said, he was a doctor, but he was more a minister than a doctor. And what he wanted was his people to come into his church. He said, do you mind if I do something about what's in your village? And Dr. White called the Harvard School of Public Health, and they sent him 2 doctors that gave 2 years in that time, and they cleaned out that area. And one of them was Dr. George Spencer. And he said, if you become my patient, I'll call Dr. Spencer. We'll have you to talk about. And I'll renew my fondness for this guy whom I like very much. So, after 35 years with him as my doctor, and he was, he knew men more than cardiology, I think. There are a lot of good cardiologists, but this guy knew men. You'd take you out of politics, take you out of compensation committee meetings and things of that nature. No, you won't be an invalid. You work 8 hours. You'll move a sofa into your office. You'll move a little refrigerator in your office. You stay on chicken and tuna fish sandwiches. You will walk 6 miles a day. He told me how to do that, where to park my car. And he knew. He said, in the middle of the day, you will get up from where your office is at State Street in Boston, and you will walk for a solid hour and come back to your office, and you won't miss a thing. And it worked out. But you will tell your people when you're leaving, I got to get my daily shot. They know what shots. They know about shots. They know nothing. You do the exercise. So you park your car a mile away, and it's 2 miles before you get home. You've done your 3 miles walking. I walked. Do you know Boston area at all?
Not
Well,
very
okay.
familiar with it.
It's quite a walk from State Street, Faneuil Hall to the Boston Public Library, across the Common and what have you. I did that. When I finally left the firm, I taught. I did 2 years as an assistant district attorney. I was a lousy prosecutor. I was too sympathetic. I felt sorry for these guys. Most day in, day out criminals, they're stupid. They really are. But they have obligations and they have children, and only now we're not sending so many of them away to prison anymore. Hopefully it's smart. They need help. And they left, my father died. We had been taking care of him, my mother, my wife, and myself. My mother had died 6 years earlier. I left the district attorney's office, and and Harvard University has an institute for learning in retirement. If there's 500 members. If any one of the members could get any of the other members, 20 of them, to get a class, if you could draft a class and interest 20 people in attending that class, the school would give you a classroom. They wouldn't pay you any. They'd let you. They'd give you an extension course at night free, and a banquet at the end of that. But so what? You're talking with these guys, and I did. I taught a legal issues course for 14 years, 28 consecutive semesters. Yeah, and I didn't know how to teach, and I said, they're all supposed to be educated people, and I treated them as if they were a law school class. And when I went to law school, the method of teaching was almost 100% casework, actual cases that you had to read. I got the cases. The Xerox. The class paid for the Xeroxing. The actual cases, right from Marbury Madison, the very first constitutional law case, the one that established that the Supreme Court had review power over legislatures.
Yeah. Wow.
Which doesn't seem to matter today under this president, but that's beside the point. He's testing everything, and so we'll see where we go. It breaks me up to see how politicized our Supreme Court is today. What are we going to do? We'll play the game the way it's supposed to be played. We'll see how the voting comes out. But I'm sincerely worried. I know most people are too. But Well, that brings me today. I guess you're up to date with me as far as I'm concerned. You got it all. I mean, I my wife died 15 months ago. We've been married 63 years. I miss her. I live alone with my cat. I've got 4 good neighbors. I do. I don't take my trash barrels out. I don't even know who does. One of the neighbors does. When their kids grew up, I've been 50 years living in Braintree. Their kids, I would pay them when they mowed the lawn. I would pay them when they shoveled the snow. I can't pay their parents now. And they still do it. The parents do it. The kids now are out working.
Those are good neighbors. Those are real good neighbors.
I mean, what else do you want? That's my life. I love these guys that I'm with right now.
Yeah, you're here for the 307th, the reunion of the 307th?
I'm here for the 307th. There are 6 of us still left. We are told that they think there are 22 still 307th alive, but only 6 of us could come. So we opened up the association to families, and that's why you see all these kids running around. They're all the grandchildren down here. You see them if you look around. All the women, and I don't drive anymore. Last year was the last year I drive. My boys absolutely forbid it, and they're right. I know they're right because I don't feel too secure driving now. Especially, I don't. So I don't drive anymore. Thank God I can afford Uber. I take Uber wherever I want to go. Why not?
Yeah, that's good.
I'm trying to make new friends. I'm a member of a nonfiction book club. I love to read. Thank God for that.
That's awesome.
Thank God for that.
That's great.
So the boys would like me to go to some like assisted living or something like that. I said no. Live in this house for 50 years. We own this house. My wife's still in every room. As far as I'm concerned, I look around the room, she's still there. I'll stay there. I want to go out this way. If I have to go to a nursing home, I'll have to go. But I will not go. I'm learning how to cook. Mostly, I give myself mostly C's. But
as long as it's edible.
That is the wisest thing that I have heard today. And that's it helps me. I got a hold of this book. It's by an Englishman. It's a cookbook. And he talks about the hype that is out around cooking. It's enormous. The chef this and chef that. And this book says he never went to school. He wrote this book, and he says, "Let me tell you about cooking, and you'll see why you mentioned it." He said, "Cooking is very simple. You take an edible substance, and you apply heat to it in various forms. It could be from cold to heat, to boil it, to bake it, to fry it, to heat it in some way. It's edible. I don't care what it's like. You can eat it." And just what you said, edible. When you said the word edible, it's like you read that damn book. And that's what I do. If it comes out lousy, I know what's in it. I make a couple of good things. I can make a decent fish chowder now because it's easy.
Yeah.
I find out the only way to spoil a fish is to overcook it.
Yeah.
And coming in from Boston, do you come from an ocean town or something like that, or where you get
No.
fresh fish?
No. But I usually just go to the supermarket to get fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's fish there.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh.
You like fish? Because
I do.
Oh, good.
I do. I like whitefish.
Well, I do. So, especially now, farming fish is not supposed to be so good. It's got to be wild fish, or not supposed to eat frozen fish. That's baloney, as far as I'm concerned. So I have a cat. I'm getting along. I look forward to. I was look forward to this convention, the reunion, which is more a recollection than a reunion. I was moved by the. You live in Dayton?
I do.
Then you should know that the Air Force Museum is magnificent.
Yes, it is.
And this morning's trip to the memorial, I wouldn't let a kid graduate high school without a compulsory visit to that memorial.
Right. Yeah. My kids have been there. I've been there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jesus. You can go through that without being moved.
Now, let me ask you, speaking of memorials, have you been on an honor flight to go see the World War II memorial?
Yes. I did. Yes, we did.
That's good.
With my wife and my two boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have the two boys here, but one of them has to go to a wedding of his wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
So the older boy is down here. They each have a daughter.
Okay. That's awesome.
So, and they both live and work in New York. That's the trouble. But they're always down. One of them is down every 2 weeks, and the other one when he can. The older one when he can. They want to make sure I have enough food in the house, that everything is right. They look around the house, make sure. I got a housekeeper who's 1 in a million. She's taking care of my cat right now. And she called the hotel to tell me that Blimpie, my cat, got another mouse. And Blimpie does those things. Yeah. So, and that cat, I love that cat. It's true what they say about a pet. I've always had dogs, but a dog we would run. We would throw a tennis ball and go here or go get it. But we always had dogs, and two dogs, both of them, one right after another, each one 16 years old before they died. Now it's a cat. This is our second cat. So I'm doing all right, David.
Good. That's awesome. Well, just a couple of final questions as we wrap up.
Whatever. Now go ahead. You let me go forever. But you seem to want to hear it, so.
Yeah, I do. So, how has your military service impacted your life?
Well, I like the respect I get. Do you see this? It's a crew chief made this and gave it to me.
Crew chief.
A crew chief.
Nice.
You know, ground crew. Yeah. This is the symbol of the 307th. It's the same symbol that I have on my hat. See it? Right there.
Mm-hmm.
This is the B-24. I didn't fly, of course. I didn't want to fly. I didn't want to know them. I only wanted them to know one thing. I had a good friend, Dean Tuthill, who did the same work I did, the two of us did, which was low-altitude radar bombing maintenance. There was no way these are snoopers. The ball turret of the B-24 was removed from the snoopers. The B-24 was modified 40 different ways for different times. And then this one was late, 44. They took the ball turret out. They put the radar antenna in, put a shield around it, around the antenna, which whirled around inside. To a Japanese fighter, it would look like a ball turret, but it wasn't a ball turret. It didn't, no guns in there, just the radio. But the advantage of this was that with the kamikaze push on, and I mean it was a push, anything that the Navy felt was not one of our ships, and they had spotters everywhere, and they felt it could be reached. With radar, you didn't have to see the target. You didn't need the bomb sight. The damn thing bombed itself. If the calibration was right, and when it left Morotai, the calibration was right. But with tubes, it's unstable. I don't know if you've ever seen an old radio in some of the old tubes, but with the old with tubes, the output would shift based upon the night sky, the different sky, the weather, the humidity, the temperature.
Oh, wow.
If it rained, forget that calibration. The bombardier had to tweak it. He had to. Why? Because 400 feet, you're after a ship. The hell, a ship? The only way they say, you're telling me that a B-24 bomber can get a freighter? I said, you ever been to a ball game? Been to a ball game? You see the home plate and the center field fence? That's just about 400 feet. Plane comes over. The pip on the radar scope in 1945 was a pinpoint of light. That's all. Maybe 2 or 3 times as big as a period in your comma here. That's all. The scope would go around, and on one of the scoops as it goes, you'd see the little light. Well, what we did with the calibration was put our own little microphone on that stem, which was constantly being scaled down to when you get within a mile of your target, your pip is moving closer and closer and closer to the echo, which is the result of the pip that you get. And when the 2 pips coincide, they add to each other. They're microvolts, but they add. And the thing is that sensitive that when it goes like that, the bombs drop. And he can drop 1, he can drop 3, he can drop 6, he can drop all 8. And the B-24 can carry 8. Sometimes, and the answer is, if they can plot, they know where these freighters are going, and if the Navy can't get to them, the Navy can't get to them, and they can plot it so that we can get to them from Morotai, and if the only way we can get to them is it'll be pitch black dark, use one of the snoopers. They don't have to see them. They get up there and they search around until they really get a good look at them. Aim right at them. Move your thing right up over them. And if the bombardier has checked the calibration, if everything is right, fly over them. Look around, no more light.
Wow.
And the crew chief, he's the boss of the ground crew. And he knows his men, and he knows who he's going to call on to fix whatever the hell is wrong. Never just stick his head up at me and tut, we go. That's it. And it was as hard as it was at the University of Maine. That's how easy it was at work. One of the things that is interesting. I didn't discover this. Somebody else did and taught us this. Japanese radar was not as good as ours, but in one respect it was better. The two platforms, they're glass tubes and they have elements inside. They could have as many as 6. 4 usually. 2 absolutely, because the 2 has to let go electrodes, heat. They need that. Well, the platforms for the tubes, and there are all different kinds of tubes. Some as thin as your finger, some as thick as your wrist. But the smaller tubes, the pins come out, they're very close together. I mean, almost like a 1/16 of an inch apart around the base of a circle. See this? Mm-hmm. That's a big circle. That's a big one. That's a typical tube in a radio. Mm. Now, what happens is this. We didn't have mica. Japanese had mica. Mica's a mineral. And it has this this very wonderful nature characteristic. You could drill a hole through it. It looks like heavy, except it's light and it's opaque, and you can drill holes in it for the 6 pins to come through, and it won't crack the mica. It won't turn it into little bits. We didn't have mica. We had fiberboard, and fiberboard is wood. Well, they knew we were going to have fungus trouble with the humidity the way it is. Yeah. So they impregnated our 2 platforms, fiberboard platforms, with fungicide. what would happen is, what they didn't figure, the engineers didn't figure, was, yeah, they would eat the wood, and they would die. The fungicide would kill them. But they died in situ, as they say, in place. And see those little bases with their lousy, squirmy little bodies? They short the pin. And the tube is blown.
Yeah.
One of the guys, uncle of one of these guys, wrote a book, and he was here at before we wrote the book, we had talked about that, and he thought it was hilarious that I had all this training, and that what we did, we got some Q-tips from the hospital, and we cleaned as best we could the platforms. Pull the tubes, clean the stuff off as best we can, clean between the goddamn pins.
Pins, yeah.
But they're very thin, the wires. The wires would go through our platform into little sleeves, and it was the sleeve that was contacted with what the hell that we'd use for, I never used a soldering iron, it was solder. Mm-hmm. You would solder the connection to the shield, because you couldn't solder to something as thin as that. So I had said to him, I spent more time with the goddamn Q-tips than I did with any other tool. And he thought that was absolutely hilarious. And he put that in his book. He says, you know what this guy went through? And he's using Q-tips, and he's laughing at it. I didn't laugh at it. That's what we had. Somebody figured that one out, and I didn't know any other better tool. So we're talking about every one of them has a story, don't they? They do.
Yeah, that is very true. All right, so
whatever you want now. I just thought you wanted to see that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, why Texas?
I think this is clay that had hardened. He came from Texas, as you can see, and he used that as a background, and he put this on. I've thought if I were younger, there are bolos a lot in the western part of the state, but they're stones. They're beautiful, some of them. Some of them very expensive, but some of them are not. It's about the same as a tie, really, $12.50 or something like that. But you can put a message on them. I could sell these, if we get some artist to make a design for the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Cincinnati Reds or the Dayton Dragons or whatever you got here, they would sell. I know they would sell. Boston is a crazy sports town for hockey, basketball. I hated basketball because I was 5'7" at my magnificent height. I'm 5'4" now. But he made these things.
Very nice.
You can. He was an artist, and not only knowing what made this plane tick, boy, he did. But he had a job offer on a Mass College of Art, and I told him if he ever took it, he could stay in my house for a while before he got settled, but he didn't. He never came up. He never came up. That's a long time ago. But he was an artist. Anything else?
So what this video would be?
Oh, I got you. Okay.
This video is obviously available for future generations. They can possibly view this. What message would you like to leave for them?
My message has nothing to do with my particular work. I hate war. World War II had to be won. That war had to be won. My feeling is there can be no other war anymore. The weapons, last year we saw the B-52 bomber. My God, it looks like a Zeppelin. It could contain so much stuff. The weapons, you wipe out the whole human race. Maybe that should be done. Maybe the cockroaches ought to win. Because if we can't learn to live together without hating each other, I'm reading a book now about Rwanda, the Hutus and the Tutsis. I don't even know, they don't even know why they're fighting each other. There's genocide there. There's genocide there. And there's no real basic reason at all for their animosity towards each other. None. I mean, I look at the Sunnis and the Shiites. Okay, at least they have an argument. It relates to who is the successor to Muhammad. I don't see that in the Houthis and the Tutsis. I don't see that. But they hate each other. They're a little bit, physically they're a little different. Hutus are a little stocky and shorter. But not all of them. And they really can't tell. But they've killed thousands of them. Each one. Tutsis killed thousands of Hutus, and Hutus, the same thing for Tutsis. My message, do everything you can short of war. But it's too early to fight. Don't hate anybody. If the guy's worth hating, he's just worth have nothing to do with him. That's the way I feel. But what can I say? Get active politically.
Absolutely.
Get active politically, and don't hate anybody. Hate the bad guys, whoever they are. I don't care who the hell they are. The bad guys, yeah, but it's just. Yeah, that's about all I can say. I don't know. You got to can't. It's one thing, when you grew up. I grew up on the streets of Boston. You got into a fight. There was, in many many areas of Boston, the Irish and the Jewish fought without any question. In the middle of Boston Common, when I grew up, Father Feeney, a priest, they defrocked him. But he came, he made these anti-Semitic speeches. Father Coughlin, every Sunday on the radio, was making anti-Semitic speeches. Today, it's a different story entirely. The Irish and the Jews are friends. Well, because today, the way I see things, there are Jews, but they're not Jews. They're not in any way devout. They're all secular. There are Christians who are not Christians. That's true. Or I'm a believer, but because of what has happened to me that I didn't tell you about, I'm not going to tell you about it because it's crazy. But as far as the organized religion, I said my doctors, my present cardiologist, for example, I've been with him for years. We know each other very well. He's a good guy, and he had me have a bypass. I had the bypass and whatnot. Still in all, I can tell you, I found he voted for Trump. What did you vote for Trump for? Well, he says, Obama is, he said, he's anti-Israel. I got a good Catholic friend who shuts everybody up when he says, they ought to stop this crap about front from Israel. Israel is worth 2 aircraft carriers to the United States. Don't you ever forget it. Apart from whatever other reason, 2 aircraft carriers and their personnel and the flyers. And whenever one of our presidents would say something, that's what would happen. That's him. But my doctor says, what the hell are you for Trump for? How can you be? He's an ignorant, narcissistic, egotistical. He's shameful. He's against Israel. Let me ask you a question, Dr. Rice is his name. Incidentally, I know a Morse family in Boston. They're Jews. I don't know if you are or not. No, all right. But they are. The name is Morse. Huh. And then when I asked Rice, I said, let me ask you a question for a minute. Do you really believe that Moses went up a mountain and came down with the 10 Commandments? This is belief, basic belief for Jews. Moses is their legislator. And that's part of the Christian literature. He looked at me and he says, "Yes, I do." That shut me right up. Because I can't believe in it. That doesn't make me any less of a Jew as far as I can see. Because that's not what people want to know anyway. How deep is your belief in, say, Judaism, Christianity, or whatever? How deep is it? Hey, look, it helps me get through my life. That's my business. I mean, but there are reasons I cannot, through reason, come to be have faith. I can't. It's not through reason. So I can't get into any arguments because I happen to know that God exists. That's my feeling. I know. Yes. Never mind how. My wife, I told a professor at Harvard in divinity school. She knows God and I talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Incidentally, this professor said to me she made me write it out. She made her write a whole class on religion, write out reflections. And when I didn't write it out, because that's one of the courses I took while I was teaching, they let me take it free. She insisted that I do it. I said, "No, I'm not looking for exams. I'm auditing your course." She says, "It'll help me." And when I told her what it was, that it was, anybody would say it was supernatural, she did the damnedest thing. As we entered that classroom, the week after I had given this to her, she was, well, I was now in my 70s, and she was, I would say, about 55. Going right through the door into her classroom, and there were students walking right by. She didn't bother her at all. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Do you know how many people would give their right arm to experience what you did?" I said, "No." She says, "Well, they would." She believed me. I mean, yeah. But most, I wouldn't say it to people because they have every right to say, "Why him?" And I say, "Well, why not my brother? Why did he have to die at age 51 or whatnot? Why the hell am I living forever?" You tell anybody, no war. No war. Don't hate anybody. Just go away from people who are thinking crazy.
Is there anything else that you feel that needs to be added that we haven't talked about yet?
Not really.
Okay.
I wish I'd get all our people back from wherever the hell they are fighting. Because I don't understand it. What the hell are they doing over there? That's one thing. All right. I thought Jack Kennedy, and I've met him. I've eaten with him. When he gave that speech saying that he was for democracy everywhere, the American public will not buy that today.
Yeah.
They won't buy that today. He was ready to fight any war to further democracy. No. No, you do what you can, but not fight a war. Because there are countries where a 100% democracy, in the sense that one man, one vote, okay, cannot exist in certain countries. It's certain, I get that. Certainly cannot exist. I mean, could you do it in Rwanda? No. Can you do it in Yemen now? Can you do it in Yemen? Can you do it in Israel now? No. 20% of the population in Israel would love to see every Israelite, every Jew, drown in the Mediterranean. Now you're going to give them equal rights? No. You do what you can. You let them govern over there, but no. They never have to serve in the army or whatnot? No. And you can't give them an equal vote. But our country was after a two-state solution. I'm not after a two-state solution, because a two-state solution means they'll have an army. And they voted for Hamas in Gaza. And Hamas is dedicated to their destruction. You're going to give them democracy? I mean, no, you do what you can. And this planet, and Russia a Democrat? Oh, boy. Not one Arab country is a Democrat. Not one. Egypt, dictatorship. Jordan, a kingdom. Saudi Arabia, an utter, absolute kingdom. Every one of them. Democracy. Fight for a war for democracy for them? No. Yeah, I can give you one thing. I'd give you... When I hear this guy talk about make America great again, I only know this much. 243 years ago, 55 men in a non-air-conditioned room in Philadelphia, okay, said, no king, no dictator, we will govern ourselves. And they formed this Constitution. Not a perfect document by any means. It's been amended 26, 27 times. Yeah. Supreme Court has reversed itself, I don't know if you know this, over 105 times. Reversed itself. Two of our greatest judges, Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. and what is it? The two of them, the great dissenters, or whatever it was, two of these judges. He's a Jewish judge, and I don't even remember what his name is. It'll come to me. You'll know that when you're looking at, because their dissents are now the law. That's the way it works. They're the only ones who can overrule a previous Supreme Court ruling. The Supreme Court can overrule itself. And they have done it 105 times. But that's good. But that original Constitution where blacks got only 30, were counted only as 30% of a person, I think. And Indians weren't counted at all. They're not persons. They were savages. So, all right. But it was the start of what we have. And it was the first constitution on the planet Earth. And God Almighty, that is great. No king. And Washington himself, he was offered it. He said, no. No king. Yeah, I'd like the kids to know. I would take every damn high school kid and bring them to Dayton and walk them around that war memorial. Let them see it.
That's good. Well, thank you very much, Bob. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your story, and of course, thank you so much for your service.